Hello, this is Jason Clement, Technical Sales Manager at Isonas, and welcome to this online training video. This video is Peer Access, Users, and Weekly Rules. In this module, we will review what a user is and how to add them, what user-defined fields are and how to add them, providing a user login to Peer Access administration, using groups in Peer Access, and what a weekly rule is and how to create them for providing access to users and unlocking access points. So what are users in Peer Access? A user in Peer Access is a record for a person. We assign credentials to a user. And a credential can be a prox card or fob, a PIN code, or a mobile credential. A user can be put into a group for access to doors with their credential or credentials. And finally, a user can be provided a login to Peer Access or the ability to receive alerts from the system. What's a user-defined field? A user-defined field, or UDF, is used to keep track of additional user information in Peer Access. At a minimum, a user in Peer Access needs a first name, a last name, a single credential, and to be put into a group to inherit some permissions. But UDFs can allow you to keep track of additional information in the system. We can configure up to 10 UDFs in Peer Access. Examples for using these UDFs are exporting to a badge printing software. So if you have a person's title that you want to be printed on a badge, you can add that as a UDF, put that text into the field for each user in Peer Access, and then when you export it into the badge printing software, it will have that information in there so you can easily print badges. Parking tag information, special employee ID numbers or special employee information, users' titles, any other pertinent info that you want to keep track of in Peer Access beyond first name and last name. So what are weekly rules? It's the who, when, and where of the system. We'll see this popping up throughout Peer Access and all the screens that we look at when we walk through and do a live lab. Keep these things in mind when creating these items in Peer Access. Who will have access? Ultimately, a user has access, but we put these users into groups to easily manage them. When will they have access? These are our weekly schedules, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 24/7, etc. And then where will they have access? And these are access points, and again, we put these into logical groups to make management easier. We then combine these three items into permissions, which are the basis for providing access through the Isonas system. So these three items, the who, when, and where, are configured into weekly rules. So what is in a user group? There are users in the user group. Remember, a user is a personnel record that we assign credentials to. When we put them into a group, they inherit these weekly rules that we configure with these three items. When will they have access is weekly schedules. Weekly schedules have two different types. There's basically normal days, which are regular days on a schedule when people may have access. So if my schedule is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., those are normal days. A holiday is something that will override a normal day. For example, Thanksgiving here in the United States is on a Thursday. We don't want our regular employees, or we don't want our doors to unlock, or whatever the case may be. We don't want a schedule to kick off on that day, even though it may be a normal day in the schedule. So we create a holiday to override that. And where are access point groups, which are full of access points. Now the weekly rule is really at the access point level, but we put them into groups to make them easier to manage. So how do we create these rules? The most common way is what we usually refer to as one-to-one. We create user groups in the system to match door groups. For example, IT users to IT doors, HR users to HR doors, and so on and so forth. The advantages to this is it's easy to create rules this way. There's one rule for each basic user type. It makes sense to most people. It's pretty easy to understand. It's the easiest for someone to troubleshoot. And it's good for small and medium-based systems. The disadvantages of this is doors will overlap in groups, i.e. everyone has access to the front door, so it's basically in every group, so we have some redundancy. It's not too big of a deal until you get into really large systems. So let's take a look at this rules creation of OnetoOne. We have an IT user group. We have a 24/7 schedule because IT is really a 24/7 type of business. And then finally, we have an IT access point group or door group with all of the doors that they have access to. Another way of creating rules is what we like to refer to as one-to-many. We create user groups to match roles in a company, basically like we did last time. IT users, HR users, maintenance users, etc. But we create door groups to match specific sets of rules. For example, everyone has access to the front and employee entry, so we create a separate group for that. The advantages of this: good for larger systems. It limits door overlap in groups and speeding up updates. The disadvantages are it can be confusing to end users at first. So let's take a look at an example of this. Again, we have our IT user group here, a 24/7 schedule, and we're going to give them access to the common doors group, so the front door and the employee entry that everybody has access to. Except now we're going to add another access point group in here, all of the IT closets that they have access to. And we have a third access point group of electrical closets so they can get in and turn off and on power for their devices. So instead of just putting in one access point group where we might have a lot of overlap, now we've broken it up into multiple access point groups so we limit that overlap. Plus now I can use these other access point groups for different roles in my system. Other people will probably have access to electrical closets. Another group might have access to those IT closets as well, so it makes it easier to break these out. Now let's take a look at a simple scenario for a lab that we're going to go through. Gondor has 3 types of employees that will need access to certain doors. We have managers that have access to all doors 7 days a week, 24/7. We have office employees that need access to office doors Monday through Friday, 5:45 to 5:30 p.m. We have warehouse employees that need access to warehouse doors on a different schedule. Note that our office and warehouse employees should not have access during holidays. We just want to make sure that those people stay home and enjoy their day off. The front door should unlock automatically Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., again except holidays. If nobody's there, we don't want the door unlocked. In Pure Access, they also want to keep track of the user's license plate number if applicable. And finally, any managers in the system should be able to log into Pure Access with an administrator privilege, so they can get in and edit people, disable their record if they leave, etc. Now let's go ahead, we'll jump into the software and we'll take a look at exactly how to accomplish this. We left off in the last module with getting our access points added in. That's great, everything's communicating, but that by itself doesn't really do much for us. We really need to get some users in the system, give them some credentials, schedule some unlocks for doors, etc. So let's go ahead and keep moving towards that goal. Before we get into that, let's review one thing really quick that we'll need for the final exam for this course. I'm going to go ahead and add another access point in. Instead of putting in the MAC address for a reader controller, I'm going to put in a MAC address with 6 A's. Then I'm going to put 6 random hex characters in, anything 0 through 9, A through F. This creates a virtual access point in our system. The final exam requires you to configure a couple of additional doors. You probably don't have a couple of additional devices, so you use virtual access points. Out in a production environment, there's no reason to do this. I'm just showing you this for the final exam itself. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in. I'll call this warehouse door. Again, I'll just put it into my all door group, and there's nothing to test because I don't have a physical piece of hardware. It's just a virtual access point that I can put into groups. So from here I can just click finish later, and I see that my warehouse door pops up here. Again, you would never use that in a production environment because there's no reason to do that. Just for the final exam, going through that and making sure your test is all done. Okay, now we're actually ready to get into our lab. So let's go back and review our lab really quick. Before we start off with the users and the weekly rules, let's scroll down to the bottom where they want to keep track of users' license plate numbers if applicable in Pure Access. That's going to be a user-defined field or a UDF. Now we could create the users, create our rules and all that stuff, go back and then create the UDF, but then we'd have to go back again and edit the users to put that UDF information in. So let's go ahead and create that UDF right now. That way when we're creating our users, we can just input that UDF in at the same time and we don't have to duplicate our efforts. So let's go back to Pure Access. We're going to go to Settings, and then we're going to go to the User Defined Field menu. The user-defined fields, we have 10 of them, are all blank. On this screen, we're basically just going to give them a name. So we're going to call field 1 license plate. We'll go to the upper right-hand corner here and click Save Changes. That's all we need to do. Now when we go underneath our users, we'll see that there's a UDF field. Now let's go back to our main menu and click on Users. Remember when we registered this tenant and we created the user Jan Kowalski? Well, here that user is, they have web access with the email login ID as a user role as administrator. That's why it's critical that that actually be a person, because it's actually going to create that user and put them into the system for you. Let's go ahead and go back to users and let's add a user in here. We'll come back to Jan in a little bit and finish out that record. So let's go to the upper right hand corner here where we can click Add User. Alternatively, in the upper right hand corner here, we can click this button, which is basically a hotkey to add in new users, reports, events, etc. in the system. Since we're already on the user page, we can just go ahead and add this user in here. We're going to add a user by the name of Jane Doe. All you need for a profile part is to have a first name and a last name. In the upper right hand corner here, we can see a couple of steps that we need to take in order to give this person access through doors in the system. The first part is creating a profile. Here we can see the license plate user defined field we created, and we can put in some information there. Employee ID is a hard-coded UDF in the system. It will show up underneath every user. We'll come back to alert notification emails in a little bit when we go over alerts in a future module. Now, Jane Doe is going to be a manager, so we need to provide her web access as per our lab rules. So we'll go ahead and check web access. Now it's going to ask for an email login ID. So we'll just do janed@gondor.gov. We can set a session timeout in minutes. So we'll make sure that she's kicked out after 5 minutes of inactivity. We'll go ahead and create a password. And save that. And then we need to edit the user role. Nope, I don't need to say that password. We're going to give her a user role of administrator. Now you can see there's different user roles of administrator, human resources, operator, cardholder, and custom. If you scroll down the roles list, you can see that they can view and modify different things in the system. So we'll go ahead and click Save here. The last piece of this user profile is adding in an image if we want to. So we can go ahead and click the image silhouette here, click Choose Photo. It'll point you to your local drive, and you can upload an image. We'll go ahead and choose Jane's image, and then click Upload. And then finally, we'll click Save. So now we can create dashboards in the system in a little bit that will actually show Jane's face whenever she reads her card. We have Jane's profile complete. We have her image, her first and last name, her license plate, and her web access information. So let's go ahead and click Save Changes right now. The next piece of this is to give Jane Doe some credentials. So we'll go down here to our credential window and we'll click the Add button in the upper right hand corner. There's 3 different types of credentials that we can assign to a person. We can assign a badge, which is a prox card, a prox fob, or some physical prox card. We can provide a keypad entry, better known as a PIN, or we can provide a pure mobile credential. So first we'll go ahead and we'll add a badge into the system. There's 2 ways you can add this badge in. First, you can click on this badge ID field and simply type in the badge number that's printed on the prox card. Secondly, you can scan the badge and basically pull in that badge ID from the reader controller itself. So if I go here, I choose my employee entry, I take the card I'm going to assign to Jane Doe, scan it at the reader controller, click read, and it will automatically pull in my badge ID for me. We can also provide this with a time limit, a start date, an end date, and time. And we can also provide this badge account limit. How many times will it be used before it will stop working? We don't need to do that. Jane Doe is a manager, so we're not planning on her leaving at any time. Now that we have her credential added, we can go ahead and click Add. Note on this screen, we can see that this is a badge because we can see the icon for a badge. The second part, we need to add a keypad entry or PIN number for Jane as well. So we're going to go ahead and add in another credential. We're not going to edit the existing credential or try to do anything else with that. It is its own credential in the system. So we're going to add a new one in. Instead of choosing badge, we're going to change it to a keypad entry. If we wanted to, we could generate random pins in the system here. To keep it simple for this lab, we're going to go ahead and assign Jane Doe a pin of 1, 2, 3, 7. Now we'll just go ahead and add that pin entry in. Notice that under credentials here now, I can see the badge. Now I can see the pin entry. The last portion for Jane is she has a mobile credential as well. So we're going to go ahead and add that in the system. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. Change from badge to mobile credential. The only way to enroll a mobile credential is to enroll it from the access point, just like we did the prox card. So we're going to go ahead and choose the employee entry. I'll pull up my Pure mobile app on my phone. Go ahead and present that up to the reader. Got a reject from the reader, so we'll go ahead and click read to pull in that mobile credential. That's all we need to do. We'll go ahead and click add, and now I can see I've got a badge, a pin, and a mobile credential. Now we've got Jane Doe added in as a user. The second part is groups and rules, and we're going to review those once we get done adding in the users. So let's go back to our user screen here. We can see we've got Jane Doe set up. Let's go back to Jan, and we'll just add some additional information to his profile. We'll go ahead and upload a photo for him as well. Click upload, and then click save. We'll go ahead and put his license plate in here. He's already got a login. We'll just reduce the session timeout. It doesn't need to be 15 minutes. Go ahead and save these changes here. And finally, we'll give Jan some credentials as well. Again, we're going to add a new credential. This one is going to be the badge, so we'll just leave that there. We'll choose employee entry. Present the credential. Click read. And add his credential in. Now we'll add his PIN in. Change it from badge to keypad entry. His PIN is 1236. And we'll go ahead and add that in there. And click save. Finally, I got two other users I'm going to add in really quick. So Jan and Jane are our two managers, and I'm going to put an office employee and a warehouse employee. So we'll go back to users, add in a new user. Okay, we've added in some users into the system and assigned them some credentials. Under users, we have two menus. We have the user menu, which we've been adding our users in, and then we have this called user groups. We want to create groups in the system to put users in to associate them with rules. We can see here under user groups, I have one group called all users that's populated as part of the default data. There's no members in it, because although it's called all users, it doesn't put any users in there. The only users that would be in this all user group are users that we actually put in there. But we can see that there's a 24/7 access rule associated with it. So before we create user groups, let's go ahead and take a look at our access control rules. We'll go back to our access control main menu. And on the main screen here, it's rules and weekly rules. So we can see there's a 24/7 access rule. This is that populate default data. This is what it creates. There's a group of all users on a 24/7 schedule to all doors. Both of these groups, all doors and all users, are empty unless we put something in them. Let's go back and review our scenario again. We have managers that need access to all doors 7 days a week, 24/7. We have office employees, and we have warehouse employees. If we take a look at this rule, it's all users, 24/7 to all doors. Sounds like our managers rule. If we just change this to managers, would have access 24/7 to all doors. So let's go ahead and just use this group and modify it for what we need. On the screen, all users is a hyperlink. So if I click on it, it will actually allow me to go in and edit it straight from this screen rather than a user group screen. So easily enough, I can just change all users to managers. I've got a couple managers I want to add into this group. So if we go down here to the middle of the left-hand side here, there's this big button that says Add Users. We'll click on that, and then we can just check Jane Doe and Jan Kowalski, who are our two managers. And we'll just add them into this group. Go ahead and click Save Changes. And now we can see that they're populated into the manager group. We'll go back up here to our user groups, and we can see instead of all users, it's now managers. And it has 2 members in it, and they have 24/7 access rule already associated with it. So we've already taken care of our manager's rule because it's already created for us. Going back to access control, we can see that now instead of all users, it's managers 24/7 to all doors. Now we also had office employees and warehouse employees. So let's go back to our users menu. Go to our user group menu. And we'll go ahead and add a couple user groups in here. So we'll add this in. We'll go to our name and we'll call it office employees. We can add the users in straight from here. And Mario Rossi is our office employee. Go ahead and save these changes. Back up to our user group menu, and now we can see we have managers and we have office employees. Office employees has 1 member and no rules associated with it. Not to worry, we haven't created those rules, so it's no big deal. We're going to add 1 more user group in for our warehouse employees. And then we're going to add Anders Anderson into that group. Save changes. Go back to our user group menu, and now we can see managers, office employees, and warehouse employees. All right, so we talked about the who. We've got our users, we've got our user groups. Now we're going to move on to the where. Where do they have access, which are going to be access point and access point groups. So let's move back to our access control. And instead of going to access points, we're going to create access point groups. Remember, we have this all door access point group already created for us. When we added the access points in, we dropped them straight into this all door group. So we can see here, there's already 5 members in there and rules associated with it. If we click on this all door group, we can see that all the doors that we've added into the system are already here for us. So we'll go ahead and refresh this. Now we're going to do basically the one-to-one method here. So we're going to have office employees. We're also going to have an office employee door group or access point group. So we'll go ahead and add this new access point group in. We'll call it office employee doors. And then we'll add the access points in that we want to be into this group. So we'll go ahead and give them access to employee entry and front entry. Only managers need access to the file room door. Now that we have them added in, we can go ahead and save changes. Now we can see here on this page, we can see that an employee entry door is actually in all doors and office employee doors. You'll notice that a lot throughout the screens of Pure Access. It will give you additional information about access points or users and what groups that they're actually in. So now let's go ahead and add in our warehouse employee doors. We can go up here to this drop down. If we click on that, we've got an option to add access point group or go in and view our all doors or office employee door group. We want to add another one in. Basically creates a new record for us. So we're going to go ahead to our name and call this warehouse employee doors. Add in our access points just like we did before, so they have access to employee entry and to warehouse door. Go ahead and save these changes. Now we'll go back to our access point groups, and we can see the 3 access point groups we created. There's members in there, but there's no rules associated with the new access point groups. No worries, we're going to create those in a few minutes. Let's go back and review our lab here. All right, managers, all doors, 7 days a week, 24/7. That one's already done. Office to office doors, Monday through Friday, 5:45 to 5:30 p.m. And warehouse employees have a different schedule. Also looking at the front door should unlock automatically Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., except holidays. So when we look at these different times, these are all going to be schedules. So let's go ahead and create these schedules in the system. We'll go back to our access control tab here. Now we can see we've got a main menu up at the top, but we also have this sub menu of weekly rules, schedule, and calendar. Our when piece is going to be our schedules. Here's our 24/7 schedule that's created as part of that default data. We need to create some new schedules for these new rules. So we'll go over here and click Add Schedule. This is going to be our office employee hours. Now schedules can be one of 3 types. Non-holiday. Any dates and times I put in here will be a regular day. They will be overridden by any holidays I put in the system. If I change this to holidays, the schedule will only be active if there's a holiday in the system. And lastly, always, the schedule will always be active regardless of whether there's a holiday in the system or not. Office employees do not have access on holidays, so we're going to go ahead and change this to non-holiday. They have access Monday through Friday, so we can go ahead and choose this. But they have special times, which are different from 8 to 5 or 24 hours a day. So we're going to go ahead and change this to choose times. They have access at 5:45, so we can just type in 05:45, and you can tab through these fields as well. Or you could also go ahead and scroll down. 5:30 p.m. is 17:30 and 24-hour time. It's far easier to just type it in and then tab through. So great, we have office employee hours. They're a non-holiday, Monday through Friday, 5:45 to 17:30 or 5:30 p.m. Let's go ahead and add this in. Now we also need a schedule for our warehouse employees. So we'll call this warehouse employee hours. They also do not have access on holidays, so we'll leave this at non-holiday. They have access Monday through Saturday, so we're going to go ahead and leave this blank for now, and then we'll set their time frame 6:45 to 7:30 p.m. So we'll go ahead first and choose times. So 06:45 and 7:30 p.m. becomes 19:30 in 24-hour time. Now we'll go ahead and change this and we'll choose our days. So they have access Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but not Sunday. I chose my times first so that when I populated these additional days in here, it automatically populated the time in. Alternatively, you can click on this little clock symbol and you can actually cycle through the different times that you've put into these schedules. But choosing the times first and then the days makes it a little bit easier. Now we'll just go ahead and add this schedule in. And you can see through the user interface, it gives us a pretty easy read on what days these are active and then what times they start and stop. Finally, we're going to add another schedule in for our unlock for our front door. It's Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we'll add this in. I'm going to prefix this with UL for unlock, front entry time. You don't really want to share schedules between different rules. Each rule should have its own individual schedule assigned to it, unless it's 24/7 or something that's really never going to change. If you associate multiple rules with one schedule, if you go in and change that schedule, it's going to change all those rules. So try to keep your rules under control. Alright, so this unlock for the front entry is going to be a non-holiday because we don't want it unlocked on a holiday when nobody's there. It's going to be Monday through Thursday. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and choose my times first, which is going to be 0900 to 4 p.m., which is 1600. And then I'll go ahead, we'll choose our days again, and it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then uncheck Sunday. And finally add this in. So now we've done our who, we've done our where, and we've done our when. Now we just need to combine these into weekly access rules. Let's go back to our access control main menu. And we'll take a look at our access rules here. We've already got our managers created, so that's easy enough. We'll add another access rule in. We'll call this one our office employee access. This is going to be a rule type of grant access. Valid credentials will temporarily unlock the access point. Most of these doors will be locked all the time, so we're going to give employees cards that will give them access into the door when they're supposed to have access. Finally, we just have to associate what groups that we want with this rule. So if we go down here to the bottom, on the left-hand side is all the information we have available in Pure Access, and the information on the right are going to be our rules. So this is office employees, so our first piece is when. During office employee hours, who is going to have access? Office employees. Where will they have access? At office employee doors. Now if we take a look at access points, you can see that there's a single location dot or a double location dot. If it's a group, it will have a double location dot and it will have an editable link. If it's a single access point, it will have a single location dot. Now instead of doing office employee doors, I could very well just go in here and say employee entry and front entry and put them in there. However, once you get into larger systems, doing single access point permissions or weekly rules is going to be a real pain. We don't want to do that. We want to use groups so that we can easily go back and edit these in. So let's move them back out of there and drag our office employee doors back in. This way, if I expand the system out, I can just easily drop in my new doors to my office employee door group, run an update, and everybody's permissions are updated. We're going to add another weekly rule in for our warehouse employee access. We'll call this warehouse instead of airhouse. This is going to be another grant access rule, and basically the same thing we just did. When do they have access? Warehouse employee hours. Who has access? Warehouse employees. And where do they have access? Warehouse employee doors. And we'll add this rule in. So that finishes off our number one piece of this scenario, giving these three types of employees access. Now we need to do the front door unlock rule. So let's go back here and we'll add another weekly rule in. This is going to be our front door unlock. This is going to be an auto unlock rule. When we choose that, all we have is when and where. What access points do we want to unlock on what schedule? The only way to override it would be with a holiday. There is another type of rule called auto unlock with badge. When we choose this, now we have the who piece in there. Auto unlock with badge is better known as the first person in rule or a snow day rule. The auto unlock schedule will not kick off unless the person or somebody in the group or multiple groups that I put into this rule presents their credential and gets a valid admit at that door. Then the unlock schedule that I set in when will actually kick off. For this lab, we're just going to do an auto unlock rule. So when is going to be our auto unlock front entry time. Where will be just our front door. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and put the front door in there. So we've got our when of unlock front entry time, where at the front door. We don't need the who piece because we're not doing a regular rule or we're not doing an auto unlock with badge. And finally, we'll add this in here. We'll go ahead and take a look at our scenario again. So we've got our front door to unlock Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're keeping track of the user's license plate number, if applicable in Pure Access. We created that with the UDF field. And finally, managers should be able to log into Pure Access with administrator privilege, which we set up Jan Kowalski was the first person in when we created the tenant, so he automatically had it. Jane Doe was a new user, which we set her up with web access to her user profile. Let's go back to pure access. So if we take one of these credentials, I'll go ahead and read this at the door, and it presented me with a reject. There's one final piece that we need to do before everything will work. We need to click up here where it says changes made, update access points. We've made changes in the system, a lot of them, and we need to push them out to the individual devices. So we'll go ahead and click this and we'll update the system. So that we can get a visual here, I'll go over to my dashboard menu. I'll create a simple dashboard of a single access point, and we'll just look at our employee entry. So here we can see some information in here. We can see that I've sent some compiles to it, which is basically running an update. Now if I take my credentials, I can see that I scanned Jane Doe's card and I got an approved access just like I should. I'll go ahead and scan Mario's card. He has access as well. And we can see that his card was approved as well. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our users. We can see that our users are now in the groups that we sorted them out into. Let's go ahead and look at Mario. So we can see that we added him into the Office Employee group, and he inherited the rules from Office Employee Access that we created. So now we can see the profile's complete, credentials complete, group, and rules are all complete, giving him access into the door, which we just saw on the dashboard. So just to show adding another user in, we'll go ahead and add a new user in via the quick button. We'll go ahead and we'll add Gandalf in, so we'll call him Gandalf Gray. We'll go ahead and choose an image for him as well. Of course I have one for Gandalf. Save this image. We'll just give him a license plate here real quick. Add in a credential. We'll just give him a PIN entry. Drop him into the Office Employee group. Go ahead and save changes. And now we can see Gandalf the Grey has been added in, gave him an image, gave him a PIN credential, dropped him into the Office Employee group. He inherited the rules that we created because the Office Employee group is part of the Office Employee Access. And it's really that easy. Finally, notice changes made, update access points to push out Gandalf's credentials and rights in the system. And it's as easy as that. Just remember, when creating your rules, remember your who, when, and where, and always, always, always use groups in your system. Even if it's a small system, just go ahead and get in the habit of putting all that stuff in groups. It will make it far easier for you in the end. In this module of Pure Access, Users, and Weekly Rules, we talked about what a user is and how to add them into the system, what user-defined fields are and how to use them, how to provide a login to Pure Access for administration, using groups in Pure Access to create our weekly rules, and what a weekly rule is and how to create them for providing access to users and unlocking access points. Thank you for watching this training video and have a fantastic day.